Greetings, everyone. Peace and blessings be unto you all. I am Jamie Eatman, and let me get situated here. I am actually on my tablet, and I had all intentions of using my desktop, but sometimes things do not go as planned. But I always say you train the way you fight, so we're going to continue with this. In any case, I wanted to share some information concerning. It was two separate videos that I had an opportunity to see. And one was with Fauci being interviewed by Anderson, and there was two other individuals. Um, Hopefully I get to the video and we can see who they are. I'm not big on the news. But those videos caught my attention because they were dealing with some very important issues. And everything going on now, right now, is about COVID. And COVID was actually the subject of those videos. One of them dealt with Fauci, and Fauci was making a correction to a previous date, a forecast he had stated concerning COVID. And apparently he had given a date around about, I guess it was later than spring of 22, because he came back and recanted whatever it was he stated, and he stated that things should be improved by 2022. But there were some things he said in that interview, and I'm hoping to bring it up, that are very important because we as a people uh, kind of really need to pay attention as to what's going on right now. And there is a lot going on. You know, we hear all the numbers concerning COVID. And it reminds me of something. I remember being in the military for Desert Storm. And as we went over to Saudi Arabia, and you got to use the phone to call back home, and everyone was worried. They was extremely worried because of the news that was being put out. And the news was far from being correct. And that showed me or taught me about the country I live in, about the media, and kind of how it works. So when they control the media, it's unfortunate. They at least capture our attention and in a roundabout way control our minds, depending on what they feed us or give us. So when we look at this thing with this COVID, it's interesting because as you look at it, we've seen it and it's unfold for us on the screen. It's unfold for other countries as it pertains to what's going on in the U.S. and the U.S. as it pertains to what's going on in other countries. And they've really been flooding us with this information. But if you remember, there was one point when all of that information stopped. And that was when it didn't stop, but it really, really slowed down. And that was during the time when Trump was in office and all the information was going on with him. So when he became the center of attention, it was like COVID, we got to rest to a degree. But here it is, it's back now. And most places or some places have gotten to the point where they open up their cities. Some cities have resumed, but yet we're still getting numbers concerning COVID and how and why everyone should get the vaccine. And the sad thing concerning this is supposedly we live in a country that's built on rights and freedom. And here we are now because of what's being fed to us in the media. We're separating on lines of who has and who has not had a COVID vaccine. And when we look at the concept of a COVID vaccine and the threat of it, we know it best as it's best given or explained to us. Now, as I was watching those two videos, that was the first time I'd heard anything positive reference to COVID in any manner being under control. But as I heard it, I was listening because whenever something positive comes forth, especially from the media in that manner, there's usually something that comes behind it. And what came behind it, or what it looks like is coming behind it, as Fauci made reference to spring of 2022, he made reference that we have to get through the winter, possibly the flu and some other things may be a complication. Now, there are some thoughts pertaining to the vaccines that we have been given and the impact to our immune system. And a real test will be the flu system. I mean, the flu, as we go through the flu, there will be some people that will be getting immunizations. And if there's some side effects to occur, it will be evident during the winter months. But in addition to that, it'll actually bring out the fact of how what has happened to our immune system, because there's a difference in the body forming an antibody to something and the immune system being forced into a certain response. And that's what we've been given or getting with the immunizations that we've taken. And I did notice in the video when Dr. Fauci was speaking, he made the comment that those people who have had the virus and gotten over it or beyond it, and the way he spoke, that was the first time I heard anyone acknowledge that by being exposed to the virus, a person might actually have some immunity to it. But like all things, you always want to plan to cut off every avenue that a person might pursue. So by cutting off that avenue, what that did was when an individual comes back and makes a statement pertaining to antibodies and so forth, they've gone down that avenue. So his comment was, which didn't make very much sense, the people who have had it and have gotten it out of their system or over it, they would have a tremendous amount of immunity, as though, there's a normal amount with the injection, and somehow the people that have gone and had it is going to have even more of an immunity than those who had not, but for them to get the injection. So as I listened, I realized it's all about the injection. And rarely do you find people that are ever on one accord as they seemingly are on this COVID issue. But I've been watching this long enough to realize it's not a matter of them being on one accord. It's a matter of the person that controls the media, controls the scenario, the situation and the circumstances that are being put out. That person, by having the media, it's like having the microphone. You're going to always be louder. And that's what's going on.
Okay, testing. I don't know well, actually, I do know what happened there. I was using my tablet, which looked as though it was plugged in, and apparently it wasn't, and it went dead, but my computer came up. So actually, we're going to resume from here, and as we resume from here, I guess you'll see the little spill that I just had there. But in any case, I'm not going to worry about that. Train the way you fight. So we just fixed that, and we're going to move forward with this. But what that does, it gives me an opportunity to kind of go over and share the video that I did want to share with you. So that does work out for the good. And that's something I can thank God for there. But in any case, going forward here, as I was saying, when it comes down to this COVID issue and the thought of getting the vaccine, I think I was saying rarely do you find everybody on one accord. When people say something passed by unanimous vote, they say that because that's kind of uncommon. But if you watch the news, most people are saying the same thing. And I was listening to this guy, and I'd heard it so many times, but it didn't make any sense. But when he said it, it came immediately flashed to my mind. All the times I'd heard it, I never really gave it any thought. But then when he made the statement, it made perfect sense. You ready for it? And I'm going to give it to you. Do you remember all the times that Trump called the news fake news? He said that long before COVID. And when he was making that statement, we all took it that he was just this arrogant individual, and he is. and that maybe he was just doing that because the news didn't agree with him. But here it is now. If we have eyes to see and ears to hear, we see that we as a people are being uh, fed, fattened. We have a healthy diet of information as it pertains to COVID. And so much so that we're drawing lines. We're becoming though there are terms for it, I don't really get into it, but those who have been immunized and those who have not, those who have taken the stab, if you want to call it that, and those who have not. And as we move forward, this issue is coming to the forefront. It is going to become a major issue. And you think it's already one because maybe in discussions it comes up and it has the ability to divide us in our communications. But it goes well beyond just dividing us in our communications, because as we move forward here, there is a plan that's unfolding. And I have one portion of the video that's not clear, and I'll tell you about that while I'm trying to bring up the video. There was someone that sent me some information, and what the information pertained to was these Greek alphabets, and these alphabets all had dates beside them, and they were supposed to be dates for variants, and we are behind. And I can imagine, I even have a thought as to why we're behind. But as I looked at them and saw what they represented, and I saw them before I saw this thing that I'm about to share with you. But it's just something that if we keep our eyes and our ears open, there's a lot that we can learn. And you know, in a world we live in now, anytime you oppose something, they want to call you one of those conspiracy theorist individuals. Not just yet. But I want you to listen to this video with me, and I'm going to pause it at certain areas. And the reason for the pause is going to be I'm going to interject as the video plays. And I hope you're able to hear it well. So let's begin. And you get a little bit of music in the process. Oh, let me share my screen first. That's not going to do much good if I don't do that. So today I have 4 guests. Actually, I'm their guests. Either way you want to look at it, it's me and them. And technology really is something else. So let me get rid of that. Bring up this full screen mode. And you notice that misspelling there, but that's all right. Okay, so get my volume right. Who shall deliver this generation? Who shall deliver this generation? And in the conversation with Mary Louise Kelly, she was saying, when do I think we're going to start to get some control? I said, if we can get through this winter and get really the majority, overwhelming majority of the 90 million people who have not been vaccinated, I hope we could start to get some good control in the spring of 2022. I didn't mean the fall. I misspoke. My bad.
Okay. What does control, what does that mean? Or what is?
Notice the question, what does control? And he didn't say control of the virus. He said control. The intent is to get the vast majority of the population immunized. So that is the focus. And the question now is, what does that look like? Listen to the answer.
What does that look like to you?
Well, to me, that means that you have either the overwhelming majority of the population vaccinated, those who have been infected will have and have cleared the virus.
Notice the word cleared. Now, you can say maybe he was asked a question and he responded to it in that manner, But those who have been infected and cleared the virus, meaning that you've gotten beyond it, you've gotten better, you're no longer impacted by it. And this is the first time, as I stated, I've heard someone even address the fact of someone having it and the benefit of having had it. So listen to what he's saying here. But they're so sold on giving this immunization. Listen to this follow-up.
Will have a degree of protection, and we are recommending that those people also get vaccinated, because the degree of protection that you could induce in someone who's been infected, who has then recovered, and then vaccinated is an enormous increase in the degree of protection.
Now, a person who has been infected and recovers, the whole process is to recover, to prevent, or as they say, to lessen. So the person has had it and recovered from it. So we have a healthy individual at this point. Now, we're still talking about a COVID that we're still studying. We're still getting data. We're still learning from. But there's this great push to immunize everybody. You know, there are some things that just doesn't make sense about this. And as we listen to him, he's sharing some things intentionally or not. So we've learned now that there are people that can have COVID and get it, and they are basically beyond that point. So those people that we say this number of people haven't been immunized, a large number of those people, small number, a number of those people, I want to be truthful, be fair, a number of those people fit that category that he just acknowledged, that having been exposed to COVID and basically have gotten beyond it. And they are healthy. But according to what he's saying, they should be immunized so they could be even more healthy or more prepared to fight COVID. There comes a point, you know, when you have to wonder, what's the push? Why?
If we can do that with the people who've been infected, get them revaccinated. The people who are unvaccinated now, that 90 million people, get them vaccinated. I think we can get a degree of overall blanket protection of the community that as we get into the early part of 2022, getting through the winter, which could be complicated by influenza, by respiratory syncytial virus, that as we get into the spring.
I want to stop for a moment. Thus far, we had this thing that caused our body to go into a response that was triggered to respond to COVID. And that response wasn't a single entity that the body went into a defensive posture against. They actually produced a overall systemic response. So now there's questions as to what did that do to the body, which had a particular way of responding to invasive organisms. So now this is the first time since we've done the shots. Now here comes a season where the body goes through certain things, i.e. flu. And I didn't even catch the other word he said. But in any case, as we go through these normal things that would have been normal, that our bodies would have responded to in a normal manner based on our normal system, the question, as he says, we don't know how or what to expect. And my thought in what he's saying here and this push, and we're going to see in another video, is that as we go through this, and the side effects occur, that's going to be used to feed us even more information, and we're going to rush out and get that immunization and actually want to persist that our neighbors and everyone else get it. And that is bad enough that if I choose not to get it, I got to listen to my neighbors, my friends, or my family trying to convince me of it. But listening to what's being said here, we're trying to get to the point where this becomes a mandate. And for those of you who really don't care one way or the other, you know, there's a saying, lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. This is an issue that pertains to life and death. This is an issue here that has a lot of unknown factors. And because one person's gullible and really doesn't care what the outcome might be, are they going to just trust that? Or are they going to just trust God that it'll be a great outcome? Maybe someone else is trusting God that there won't even be an outcome for them, that they don't need that. So whatever's going on here is getting to the point where it's creating fear. And this fear is going to turn into havoc. And as we start to experience that, we want to remember who we are. We're supposed to be a civilized people. And with what's going on now, we supposedly live in a country that's built on freedom of choice. And that choice is being taken away. Listen.
We can start getting back to a degree of normality, namely reassuming the things that we were hoping we could do. Restaurants, theaters, that kind of thing. But again, there's a big caveat there, Anderson. This is a very wily virus. We thought we were going to have that degree of freedom as we got into the 4th of July and the summer. And then along comes a soccer punch with the Delta variant, which is extraordinary in its capability of spreading from person to person. So we hope we'll be there at the time frame that I mentioned correctly, being the spring of 2022. But there's no guarantee because it's up to us. If we keep lingering without getting those people vaccinated that should be vaccinated, this thing could linger on, leading to the development of another variant, which could complicate things.
Now, I want to say this about the variants. I have a picture at the end of this video that's blurred, and you won't be able to really identify it. But it's these Greek letters, and there were projected dates as to these variants. Now, if you remember, Trump didn't use the playbook. But it seems now there's a playbook, because everything that's happening is supposed to unfold a certain way. For someone that doesn't know much about COVID, we've got an awful lot of plans that's contingent upon this and that occurring. So somehow we are getting ahead of ourselves and claiming that we don't know, or we do know and really not concerned with informing the public. Or maybe it's just a playbook here and only the players are supposed to know. I don't know their philosophy, but I think that if we would keep our eyes and our ears open, we will not be deceived. But right now, as you can hear here, and especially in this next video, there's a game plan they have for us. And it's all about taking away the liberty, the choice. Some may figure it makes so much sense to go ahead and do that. It doesn't make any sense to me, because when I look at it, I believe in being certain of something. Even if you listen to what's being said here, the things that are being pushed through the system, and the desire to get everyone, to include children at a certain age, even if you left out any, if their philosophy made sense, to leave out any would introduce the spread of. So when you look at that, something doesn't make sense here. So for someone supposedly to protect children, but yet expose the public, possibly mandate the injection of something into the human body that is not fully understood, is not fully functional, and they're stating that. You know, when it comes to conspiracy, there comes a point when you move beyond the conspiracy theory to you look for the conspirators. And there are some that's out and about. We've heard about the conspiracy theories, but just as they've determined certain things about COVID, some of those theories have come to pass. And there are some guilty parties. But when will the accountability phase begin? I believe it will. Actually, it already has begun, because my trust is in God, and he doesn't sleep.
So it's within our power to get this under control.
And what
And that is
percentage,
to get vaccinated.
what percentage of the population would need to get vaccinated, even if they've had it before, would need to get vaccinated in order to get that kind of control?
Right. Anderson, in all transparency and honesty, we don't know that because we have not been to the point where we've gotten there, then fell below, and then see the virus come back.
Did you hear that answer? We don't know. We don't know what percentage that would mean. We haven't gotten there to see the virus go away and then come back. There's a lot of unanswered issues, but yet we're moving ahead. Now listen to this next video. He wasn't all that certain of things, but listen to what this gentleman here is saying. If there's a question of this country moving to a mandate for this coronavirus, it shouldn't be after you hear this.
So the best data in the 6+ month
of this vaccine, something we've been waiting for a long time. It's already led to a number of changes in vaccines mandates nationwide. But do you think this will convince enough people to get vaccinated to really impact the way Delta is spreading?
Yeah, Chef, first of all, thanks for having me back. I think it's going to make a big difference. Look, I think there are some individuals who've been waiting for this full approval, and for them, I think it'll help. But I think there are a lot of companies, we saw some of them today, as you said, and the Pentagon, a lot of states and cities moving towards mandates. So I think all of this will really be a big step forward.
A big step, but for governments, it sounds like, and big businesses, that's where the big numbers could change. Have a shot, have a job, get a shot. Don't get a shot, you don't have a job. That, it sounds like, is the real idea here.
Notice how that is already happening. Depending on your profession, you're already hearing that conversation. If not, you've already been informed. And that's where things are going. Supposedly, it isn't even a mandatory thing yet, but they have made it mandatory in that sense. And as it's being stated here, you know, we live in a small little circle, and we assume that it's just our circle. But it's not. As you're listening here, when this guy says the big companies, these are individuals here that have a degree of say-so, a voice to a degree, that are making decisions on hiring and firing of people based on the fact if they got the shot or not. If the shot isn't mandatory, they are literally making it that. And not so much making it that, but there are certain essentials, food, shelter, and clothing that we need as a people. So by now putting this in this manner and using people's health, their means to prosper, and putting it at risk, these individuals are going to be put in a position where they're either going to take that shot, immunization, whether they agree with it or not, or whether they fear it or not, for the sake of being destitute or not being destitute. So as we hear the conversation here, there's no denying that. That's clearly what's being put to this gentleman that's being interviewed, and he's in no way backing down from it. So as you can see, we may be the last to know, but there's a bigger plan going on, and most of us can attest to it. It's already happening in our smaller circles, which is only an indicator, and as stated here, that there's a much larger force at work here. So let's listen.
Yeah, look, first and foremost, like we have vaccine mandates for all sorts of things. We have vaccine mandates for measles vaccines and for other vaccines. So this is not some crazy idea to do a mandate. The second part is, you know, when you look at the unvaccinated, about 2/3 of them say that they would get the vaccine if there was a mandate. So
Okay, that was the term vaccinated and non-vaccinated. Now listen to that. 2/3 said they would if there was a mandate or a vaccine that was approved. So now we get a vaccine that's being approved, probably with all these stipulations. If you're like most places you walk into, there may be a sign, or you're informed that you're entering at your own risk. So here's a scenario here where you could actually lose your life and it not even be something that your employer or anyone can be sued for, because this is COVID. But yet we're moving ahead in such time as this in making these type of insistences upon people. So regardless of what the outcome is, we're creating situations that there's going to be confusion no matter how you look at it. People are going to be going to work, not with the thought of, I'm happy to be at work. It's really going to be about the money. If you can imagine, you've all heard that expression, people are just in it for the money. Well, it's truly going to be that way now. And you're going to have some fearful people that's going to be there. You're going to have some people that are there because they don't have a problem one way or the other. But that becomes the question, and that becomes the issue. So as this moves forward, it is a threat. This is a threatening situation. We all should see it as a threat. The unknown always represents a potential threat. So as we hear the conversation, there's a plan already afoot. And when and how it unfolds actually has already begun. We haven't seen what the government is saying, oh, this is mandatory, not yet anyway. But we see all the players that impact people's lives, that influence them not based on their mind or their thoughts, but based on their needs and their necessities. That should be illegal, if you ask me.
I think you'll see a lot of those people jump off the fence and start getting vaccinated.
Kids, though, we were kind of hoping that it would be 12 and up. We got 16 and up. What's the rub there?
Yeah, so the best data and the 6+ months of follow-up data is in the 16 and older.
The 6 months follow-up data. 6 months follow-up data. We said that there was no trial of this drug. Supposedly, now we got 6 months of follow-up data. And if you remember, they started with certain population and children were the last ones. So because children were the last ones, I guess somebody exercised some restraints and that we didn't want to do this with them. But as you can see, 6 months of data, and we're still moving ahead. Full steam.
12 to 15, obviously we have emergency use authorization, but we don't have that full.
Notice emergency use. We don't have that full. I interrupted what he was about to say, but they don't have the full approval. But because you left a crack, the door is open for emergency use. They aren't speaking emergency. They're speaking as though the intent is to go through this normally. We have, if you can imagine someone that wants something so much, and they're just looking for the approval to be granted or given. As the saying goes, just to get a foot in the door. And that's literally what this guy is saying here. They have emergency permission in emergencies. But listen to this conversation. Nothing emergent about it.
Follow-up data. And the FDA is just being really careful about this, and I think that's fine. But at this point, the big next thing is what about kids under 12 and emergency use for them? My hope is that's coming in the next few weeks, maybe the next month.
Deaths are up. We're more than 1,000 a day now, Doc. How much worse do you sense this wave could get, or are we close to peaking?
I hope we're close to peaking, Chef. This is an enormous amount of suffering that the American people are going through. 140, 150,000 infections a day, 1,000 deaths a day. I think we're going to see death numbers climb even higher in the next couple of weeks. But I'm hoping big outbreak states like Florida, Louisiana, they're at their peak and they may be coming down. Let's hope so.
The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Our best defense is the armor of God. Mothers love your daughters, fathers love your sons. Together we can save this generation. Tell me who shall deliver this generation. Who shall deliver? this generation? Shall deliver this generation? Who shall deliver this generation and turn their hearts to our Father who's art in heaven?
As you all notice that picture near the end, that picture was actually, it was a picture of the letters, the Greek letters that they have prepared for use. And it had dates, but those dates are already behind. And they're at the delta, which is actually like the first one. But what that tells me is that as we move forward in the media and I guess the players who have the playbook, as they play their particular hands, they're all going to be on the same page because this is forecast out. That picture was one that was put up on Messenger, and as I went, I could see it on my iPhone, but I went online and it had been removed. So I'm sure they had a great reason for removing it, and I don't imagine this video will stay up very long either. But what I'm getting at here is this: there's a problem. We, the people, have a problem, and that problem is the same government that's supposed to represent us as a people. Historically, all this history about what the United States stood for, and COVID changed all of that. But isn't that amazing? COVID is a organism supposedly that infects our body. So when the powers that be and the pawns that are being used do what they do, the only thing we in our communication ever talk about is COVID. COVID. COVID isn't accountable for the things that are being done. It is a reality. As that slide said, it's a reality just as much as our conspirators. Those are the individuals that are carrying out the things that they keep referring to as conspiracy theories. There comes a point where if we just sit back, there's nothing to stop what's unfolding. And we need to get to the point where we get out of people's face with what we think they should be doing and enjoy the right that you're in a position to decide what you're doing, because at the rate things are going, those rights are slowly being taken away. You know, there's a tie here with everything that's going on. And the more the individuals seize control, the more control they have. And the Bible tells us there's coming a day when there's going to be a system that's going to be implemented. And the more you give now, the less you'll have for them to take from you in the future. So when we've done all else to stand, let us stand. Let us stand on the faith. Let us remember that we serve a God that COVID doesn't even begin to register with. COVID is in the natural. There's some spiritual things going on here that we need to be praying about. As they say, the enemy is ever present. But if we prayed for the enemy, those that are supposedly in authority, some of those same individuals have say-so as to how and what happens with this COVID, with this vaccination. And even with the outcome of it, that's sure to manifest itself in the very near future, if not already. We just haven't gotten the information yet. But in any case, whatever you feel about this whole ordeal, that's the way you feel. And I congratulate you on that. But by the same token, let us not cause strife. Let us not cause envy. Let us not cause hatred. Let us not cause covenant among ourselves and our fellow man as a result of one person's choice which may differ from your own. Let us use wisdom in all things. And if we use wisdom in all things, it'll be a little bit easier to get an understanding, because right now, I don't think nobody really understands what's going on. But I know there's something that does. I thank you all for taking the time to watch this now or later. I thank you for joining me, Sister Cree. I do want to acknowledge you. Peace and blessings be unto you. So as you all watch this and you saw the little spot up front, I may edit that and repost this. Until then, this is it. But I hope there was something I said that at least in